He said she was having a 90-pound mole removed from her ass. The implication was that her ass is so big she could have a mole that size removed from it.
It's an off-colored remark. It's highly inappropriate. You want? I'll demand he's taxed. But clip him?
Is it all just about money?
I'll crack him good. I'll ask for 200 grand.
200 grand for insulting my wife. What's next, Carmine? You get the fucker for $1 million?
He wants to fuck her?
I'm making a point. I'm talking about my wife's honor here. My honor.
And if you don't have honor, what do you have? Welcome to Cut to Black, a Sopranos sit down. I'm Jim Scampoli. I've seen every episode of The Sopranos.
I'm Jacob Burrows. I've seen 43 episodes of The Sopranos in Sopranos years. I'm getting up there. I'm getting there. You know, I've got some silver in my hair, but ooh, I'm a silver fox. Silver Soprano fox coming for you. Because we're here at season 4, episode 4. It's episode 404. Oh, how ironic. That's not really ironic. Okay. So this one, who wrote and directed this one, Jim?
This episode is written by Terrence Winter, who is a Sopranos rock star, and directed by Jack Bender, who is a name we've heard before. We will hear again. And I didn't realize till just now that this is the halfway point of the series. Yes, episode 43.
Wow, we got there, and ignoring any and all pauses, which may or may not have happened, this does prove that we will be able to finish The Sopranos in the year 2019, right? I believe so. It must. We've done half of it.
Yeah, even if we do a couple movies in between, we should be good, I believe.
Yeah, nice. So I'm actually half a man because I've seen half The Sopranos. So
you're middle-aged. You just got a new Porsche, and you're trying to date a younger woman.
Yeah,
you're Tony Soprano.
Maybe making some weird changes, like moving to a new country for no reason because I'm middle-aged. I don't know what I'm doing. Yes, we're here to talk about episode 4. Now, this one does expand a lot on Johnny Sacks. I didn't quite realize last time we were talking about like, oh, a big deal comes out of this joke, and it's like, no, like a really fucking big deal comes out of this joke where we're gonna whack one of the, like, Carmine's calling to have his own underboss whacked because of this joke, which, as is pointed out in the episode itself, it's not even really a joke. You kind of had to be there. Like, it was just an off-color remark.
Yes, yeah, and actually, before we even get much into the episode, I do want to call out, since it's kind of current here in the now, the actor that plays Carmine, his name is Tony Lip. He did pass away in 2013, but there's a movie out right now called The Green Book, and Viggo Mortensen actually plays him in the movie because this guy Tony Lip, he used to work at the Copa. He was like a maitre d' / security. And he was just a racist Italian American, and his life changed when he went on a tour as security with actually, what's the Dr. Don Shirley, African American pianist, and the movie's kind of about their relationship. So it's kind of cool, kind of nice little Sopranos tie-in. I guess this dude, like, from working at the Copa, that's how he met like Francis Ford Coppola, got a bit part in The Godfather, and he's popped up in different mobster movies. I think he had an uncredited part in Goodfellas, as every Italian actor at the time did, apparently. And of course, known as Carmine on The Sopranos, who previously told Tony, Don doesn't wear shorts.
Yep. Yeah, not even jorts, Tony. So don't even think about it. That's interesting because sometimes when you start talking about these people, I have a hard time like, wait, is Jim talking about real life or is no okay, no, he was working at the Copa, got that much.
Yep.
And someone and Viggo Mortensen's now playing him, not the role he is in The Sopranos, obviously. They're playing him, the real person. That's interesting. Correct. That is interesting.
Yeah. I haven't seen the movie yet. I mean, I know it kind of does look like it might be kind of an award bait type movie, but I bet you it's pretty enjoyable. I've heard some positive things as well.
Interesting. Maybe we have something to watch in between seasons.
That's a good point. Yeah, absolutely.
So coming into this episode, Johnny has not gotten over it. He is in a bar just hanging out. Someone's laughing over there. I'm pretty sure that guy works for Ralph. He's probably laughing about my wife. I'm gonna follow him and beat the shit out of him and piss on him. And even the guy who's with Johnny's like, Johnny, what you doing, Johnny? Because
what the fuck? What are you doing, man?
Because no one's like, yes, his honor, his wife's honor. Throughout the whole episode, like we see in the intro there, Carmine's kind of like, what? I'll tax him, I guess, if you want. But yeah, he's acting out, and he does so physically with this first guy in the episode.
Yeah, Johnny Sack is not letting this go, and yeah, he wants blood. He wants revenge. He's fighting for his family's honor here. So he beats the fuck out of a guy, pisses on him. He's covered in blood, and we see his wife Ginny Sack, and she's like, hey, you're covered in blood. And he's like, I fell, cut my hand. Don't worry about it. And then we check in. Carm and Tony are speaking to like a financial advisor because as Carmela's been through this season, it's kind of like, Tony, the money. What about the money? What's going on with the money, Tony?
Yep. No, yeah. And she is continuing her sort of arc of like, I'm into real estate and I'm into stocks and bonds. There was a period of time when Tony was really like, stocks and bonds are the future. And they had that .com company with calling to sell stocks. What happened to that? Because now he's like, nah, you got to keep your money in your mattress or whatever. He's back to that, or he dug it down or something. I don't even remember.
You know what happened to that? 9/11, my dude. 9/11 happened. So, stocks and all that stuff, it's not stable. Yeah, you got to put it in the bird feeder.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's where it is. So, yeah, Tony is there, but he's not super engaged. He's cracking wise. And he has to run off to talk to Johnny about what the fuck is going on. And I think he does get the lowdown. He has to kind of whittle it out of him. But yeah, he hears what Ralph supposedly said, and he kind of chills out a bit there because he realizes what's actually going on. Tony, I mean, because before that he rushes in like, "What the fuck, man?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, very off color. I would never have heard that. I wasn't present."
Yeah. Of course, if I was there, I wouldn't stand for that. But yeah, finally, it's like, passive aggressive Johnny Sack. Finally, after he got a beaten out on someone and pissed on him, now he can say what he's really mad about. Tony does understand what's happening here, and throughout this episode, I feel like Tony has a plan on how to get things fixed. It's just people don't know how to listen to him. Looking at this next scene, I realized I was talking about this scene in the previous episode. My apologies.
All right, you were like about Carm wanting to do Furio wants to do a guest house in his garage, and I was there like,
my fault.
Are you
That's my fault.
Any opportunity to pick on Swedes, Jim, is very
yeah. If we go inside for a moment, we do try to keep it with episode to episode, but since we've been behind and trying to line up our schedules a couple times, we've doubled up. If you check our YouTube, you've probably seen that. But apologies, I did get ahead of myself because this Furio, Carmela, and the new house thing has been going on for episodes, and they start to bleed together.
Yeah, well, but it's so exciting as well. You just couldn't wait to get into it. Carmela brings out her real estate exam and about the different zonings because why he can't make it a guest house. And I was imagining like a fancy big garage, and it's like it's not even that. You couldn't even put a car in there. And he's like, I want my parents in there. I'm in the big house. They're in the small house. It's a power thing. Yeah. And
yeah, he talks about he's having a warming house party, or however, hilariously he says it because he's a foreign man.
Oh yeah.
And then actually, you know what? I meant to get into this before the start of this episode, but since we're still at the beginning, I want to talk about it now. This is one of those episodes, like I mentioned how last week with Christopher, in my mind, I remembered it as one of the worst episodes. I thought of this similar to this episode as well, but mostly based on the promos. I don't know if people remember, if you watched it initially, and I was digging around online. I was trying to find the promo for this episode because I remember this one specifically. It really was a bait and switch to make you think that dramatic things were going to happen, because you know how there's that scene of Tony. I mean, we'll get to it in a bit, but when Tony's in the parking garage and Elliot is like driving up behind him.
Yeah.
They showed that I remember this in the promo, and it was like, you didn't see who was driving, and Tony's like, someone's creeping up on him. And then Tony's like, "Hey, what do you want?" And they were like playing tense music and shit. And they were like intercutting it with some of the other scenes because there's like, scenes of Johnny Sack yelling like, "I want his head" or whatever. And you're like, "Oh my god, fucking shit is going down next week." And digging around a couple old like message board threads and stuff, there were people talking about how like it's notorious The Sopranos was for like tricking you, and kind of they took that with Mad Men. I don't know if you remember watching Mad Men, where they would have hilarious promos that wouldn't even make sense. It would just be someone saying something and someone looking, and then a car driving away, and be like, "Next week on Mad Men."
Yeah.
But yeah, I had to call this out because it's I remember to this day. I remember looking forward to this episode and being like,
Wow.
"Oh my god, who the fuck is in the car that's running up on Tony this week?" And then it was just this like convoluted, like they were really proud of themselves of having, like, this next scene reminded me of it. The fact that Meadow learns about volunteering at the law center, and then we find out later that it's Elliot's daughter, and then he has the run-in with Tony and calls him a repairman, which is that's a funny line. But they're really proud of themselves of having these like, "Ooh, look who's running into each other," and they don't know who they are. But this promo for this episode, man, seared into my memory.
Wow, because when you were saying that, I imagined like, oh shit, it's gonna be like the assassin who's going after Ralph, because that's actually a tense moment of like, is he gonna shoot him, and like the elevator door closing, but then it's like, now we got this car footage. I'm pretty sure we want to use that. I don't think
they showed that as well. They do show the guy with the gun and then the elevator opening and Ralph's there. But I specifically remember there was also intercut with like Tony being stalked in a parking garage, and it's like, oh no, they're gonna try to, Johnny's gonna take out Tony and Ralph next week. Holy shit.
I don't think it's the same person editing the promos, because someone watched this episode and was like, so we got to make this interesting. It's about a joke about his wife. There's some tense stuff here. Like, let's have the yelling. Let's get all the yelling and all the sort of atmospheric ones. Like, we have to trick people into watching this. It is a good show. It's a great show. I watched it, but like, people aren't going to watch it if I make an honest trailer. Like, I'd put yakety sax over it, and they'd be, oh, my wife. And like, no, we can't. So they had to do it, Jim. They just had to. It's for the greater good.
Yeah, they had to. They had to get me to tune in and then be like, oh, they go to the same school. Oh, wow.
Twists and turns. Yes, so indeed, we meet this new character. It's Elliot's daughter, wears interesting clothes, talking to people about how it's a fleece, talking about how, you gotta volunteer to help at the law center, because I guess at these schools you can just become whatever, because you just like go for 4 years and then you decide what you want to be, or I guess I don't know how it works.
Yeah, I mean, they have that comment where it's like, oh, you're realizing that college is just a warm up for grad school or whatever. And I mean, that does feel real. It is kind of like just the same of how like you go to high school. I mean, here in the States anyways, you go to high school, and then, I mean, unless you go to, I guess, a really nice college, most colleges you go to them and then you're like, wait, this is just high school again. What the fuck? Yeah. I thought this was supposed to be deeper and like a bigger deal, but no, they're writing like, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally on the board still, and teaching you PEMDAS and the Pythagorean theorem, whatever the fuck.
Two of those are the same things, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It is, I suppose. So yes, we also get, just to hone in what side of the family we're with here, we do get to see as well Melfi actually in therapy with Elliot, just to sort of lead up to that. She's talking about how her son isn't focused anymore, and whatever, he wants to join the forestry service. Like, I don't care. I don't care at all.
He's regressing, and then Elliot's kind of talking about how it could be tied to the rape, or it's kind of like a fallout of that, like people blaming themselves or each other for how it happened, and people dealing with trauma. Yeah, it's just, it kind of is only here to have this like, look how clever we are, that Tony's almost running into these characters.
Well, I guess as far as Melfi's concerned, it's supposed to be about her. Like, even though she knows she can't blame herself, it's sort of been a creeping feeling. Like, it's almost like it's not her own feeling, but just the way people are acting around her, it's sort of imposed on her that she has to feel guilty somehow, and she can't help the weight of that. It just does affect her, like Richard, for example.
Or Ginny Sack's weight.
Oh yeah, it's weighing on her. Yes, so I have an honest point I was making, but yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's
I can help myself.
Yeah, so that's the thing, and I guess Elliot does help her later when he brings up the parking garage and says like, "What? I was thinking about it, and like it wasn't like they're not inherently dangerous places, but." It's worth it just for that line of like another parent, probably a repairman. It seemed like a repairman.
A repairman. Yeah, and I mean there was a quick scene too. Tony and Sil and Chris are all trying to figure out who's talking, who's running their mouth. And Tony, even like when Silvio steps out of the room, is even kind of considering that could be going on. And I guess that's not too much of a surprise considering that, Sil's a little off the rails with Columbus Day, and then even before that, of course, with Christopher being kind of bumped up and being set as kind of the heir apparent over Silvio. So, but as we all know, is Paulie just running his mouth.
Yeah, it is interesting because, there's the three of them. Silvio leaves and Tony's like, so what do you think about Silvio? Where obviously throughout the whole show up until this season, it's been more like Christopher leaves and he leaves over to Silvio. Like, so what's Christopher doing? Like, are we good with Christopher? But it's the other way around now, indicating his sort of move towards trusting Christopher, which still, I haven't seen him shoot heroin, but like, I can only assume it happens. As read between the lines of his meeting with the old people there, like he's definitely still on lots of all the drugs.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they're just annoyed about the whole joke, of course. Christopher does say something about spreading dysentery in the troops, which is great. Yeah. So
great that no one there's no correction or call to it. It's just kind of you catch it or you don't. Yep. But yeah, that's a nice detail. It's interesting that then they don't play too much on this parallel, but like, you have Chris, Sil, and Tony, or just in general, they're wondering like someone's running their mouth, someone's talking. I mean, it couldn't be Ralphie because he's the one bearing the brunt of it. But it's interesting that Ralphie is now coming back from Florida with back issues. And it's very reminiscent of Big Pussy, although I guess he was in like Puerto Rico or something. But I think there was also talk of Florida as well, or that's where he was pinched or something. So, I mean, I don't even know how direct of a parallel they're doing, but it's just kind of an interesting little nod, I'd say.
Yeah, I guess that's just where people go, Florida. So maybe it's not that suspicious. I mean, he must have said he was going, like, unlike Pussy, because obviously, like, they don't go like, "Where's Ralph?" And yeah, he does walk in with his bags and like, I had to drop that crazy broad. Oh, she wanted to stick a dildo up my ass. Of course, he's using the thing that he obviously wanted to happen, and he was like, that's fun. That's really fun.
Well, and yet another moment of Ralph, because given that this joke is a big thing, I think there was another joke, because there's the joke at the dinner about Ginny Sack being fat, and there was a different joke when they were laughing about her being fat, and then Johnny walks into the room and he's like, "What are you clowns laughing at?" And they're like, "Oh, nothing. Yes. One of the girls or something." So, and it's a very similar thing here because, he's telling these lies about Janice, but then he's even saying like the whole family's fucked. And then Tony walks in like a second later.
Yes. Literally like a second. Like there's no way he didn't hear that, but I guess he just has to deal with Ralph now. I don't think he understands that he was talking about him, but like, that's audible. He would have heard that. He's just so not careful with this, and I doubt that he's learned his lesson by the end of the episode. But he brings some oranges back, so you know what? He's a good guy.
And then what? Yeah. Oh, because this is where Tony's trying to advise Ralph on what to do. Like, the main thing he tells him: don't fucking apologize, because yes, if you're apologizing, you're admitting guilt, basically. Yeah. And even Tony, it's funny because he's even like listening in on the line, and Johnny Sack does reference how Johnny Sack was the mediator between Tony and Ralphie, and now Tony's trying to do the same thing, but Ralph doesn't listen, and he's like, "Fine, I'll apologize," and that makes things worse.
Yep. Because if you apologize, it's your own fault. And I was like, almost thought Ralphie was, handling it, but then Tony knows, like you said at the start there, he does have a plan, but like nobody does what he wants them to, so it just doesn't work.
And it's interesting. We do see Ginny Sack like in the background, she's like weighing out her portions. She's doing the things that, you know, like you understand, like because Johnny even says like, it's not an issue for me, her weight, but you know, she's my world, and I don't want someone in like laughing behind her back, and especially because he sees that she's trying so hard. And you know, yet again, another 2018 episode, because they're talking about how it's hard for women because of body image issues and the way the media makes you feel and think. So, you know, we're getting into some deep stuff here with a bunch of Goomba gangsters.
Yeah, no, true. Though I think, yeah, you wouldn't, that surely, like, since at least the 60s must have been a thing, like, that we were aware of. So it's not as 2018, like, I feel 60s, maybe?
No, I mean, again, when I say these things, it's just because it's such a it's such a focus because of social media that even like you know, the perpetrators of things like this, like magazine covers are trying to be like body posy when they were the ones that like not necessarily caused it, but played into it so much. Like that's why it just feels current. Obviously it's always been an argument and always been a thing. But it just feels so now because it's in your face a lot more, and even being used as a way to market shit to you by pretending like a company cares about it, you know?
Yes, and I feel like you're right, because it is like in every show now. Every show would have a storyline about this. Sopranos did 18 years ago, plus they have an extra twist on it every time, I feel like. And maybe that's the thing about last week's episode, is they had a take that wouldn't necessarily be different. Like they had an interesting, like, it wasn't too bad of an episode, but this time when it comes to like body image and things like that, they take an extra twist on it, and it's in a gangster show, so like there's another layer of sort of spin to the story that's really interesting. And like it's not always saying what's on the surface of the show. You have to like kind of think a little bit about it, so that means it's still very relevant, I think.
Absolutely.
So we get the scene where he's yelling at Carmine, Johnny, about, we heard it at the start of the show there, and Carmine's just like sipping his espresso and offering to like bleed Ralph for money or whatever, but like he thinks this is very unreasonable. So, you know, there are millions of dollars at stakes, and John, he proposes a sit down then, and I'm just going to skip ahead and say that sit down starts to happen, but the scene is just cut off, and when he's like, I can't be in the same room with this guy, and rushes out of there. Because again, just escalating, just showing how out of control he is.
And they're so, I mean, I know we both always bring this up, but they're so good with the comedy, because the back and forth with Carmine and the fact that Johnny has to, like the clips of the start of the show, but how he has to explain like what the punchline is. And then I love that Carmine is like, he wants to fuck her. And it's very similar to like the end season of the last episode when Chris is like, he's gay. Gary Cooper was gay. Like just those fun little asides. And I mean, his delivery of, and then what, he gets to fuck her for $1 million. It's so great. But yeah, and the way these sit downs, I mean, when we have the cell phone sit down, the way they play up some of the humor there, it's handled so well. And, it's why this is one of the greatest shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, then we kind of, so, you know, we get the sit down, and then the actual sit down where, Johnny Sack, he makes it seem like it's about the other thing with the money, or the going through the accountant's numbers and how he's skimming off the top. But yeah, he's really just pissed off still about this joke, and he can't even be in the same room with this piece of shit. But before that, I think Tony goes to see Meadow at college, which is another weird way they do it too. Like she's talking to someone kind of doing the law center stuff, or and she just looks out her door, and like Tony's walking by eating donuts. Like it almost like a dream sequence.
Yes, and they're doing this in her dorm, like she's doing this volunteer work from home, I guess, which is fine. I don't know what type of volunteering she's doing, but okay. So Tony does show up there, and it's a nice indication of where their relationship is at, because words are said that would maybe in another season have caused a huge argument, but they're just sort of like grinning at each other because like, oh, you.
Yeah, I noted the same thing. Like they're still kind of arguing a little bit, but it's a happy like, you're you, and you're gonna be you, and we're family. Let's just live with it, because Tony does bring up that he wants her to be a doctor. I think he's even told Melfi that, or pediatrician, or what have you. But now she's getting into this criminal justice type law stuff, and she even kind of throws something back in his face. You might know a little thing about that, but again, there's no screaming and storming out. It's just kind of smiles and giggles.
Yes, and I think who wrote this episode again?
Oh, this one is written by, hold on, I have it right here. Oh, Terrence Winter.
Now, I wonder if it's Terrence Winter leaving his fingerprints, because I swear I've seen this in other episodes. Maybe those were written by him as well. But she does say that she's helping people who are indigent, which is, I had to crack the thesaurus, but it means poor and needy. The law center is helping those who are poor and needy. And Tony says that back to you got to watch out for these indigenous peoples, talking about Native Americans last week. So that's another one of those dysentery lines that again, there's no reaction. He's just sneaking those jokes in there that they're using words and they're not using them right.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And just kind of happy report, but they're still kind of at odds a little bit, but it's not a bad thing. And then I think from there we have the infamous parking garage scene.
Which is really shot dramatically. If you look at it, the point of view through the car window, it's really okay, yeah, this could be a shootout, but it's just Elliot with his weird glove, his driving gloves, I guess. He could be a murderer with that getup. But yeah, I feel like this visit to college is almost just for that parking scene, kind of.
Yeah. And then, okay, because after that is the sit down where Johnny walks out. Then we have, Carmilla's going over bills still and kind of calling Tony out on how he kind of half-assed the meeting they had with with her cousin, the finance guy. But he's eating crumb cake and just trying to do his Tony thing. We always see these scenes where Carmilla is annoyed or about to forgive him, and then Tony sits down and eats something. So this is yet another one.
And this one really struck me because I don't know if you remember or can associate with this feeling of being a kid and then you're upset about something and someone tries to get you to eat ice cream, but you're still upset. I don't know if that's a sort of specific feeling, but I always think of that when it's Tony and there's an argument and he's angrily eating something, and I'm sad for him because I'm you're not enjoying that, Tony. You're just hurting your body. Much like if you're a kid crying, trying to shovel ice cream down your throat, and it's not making you happy.
Yeah.
That's just such a sad thought for me. That's Tony's life and diet and heart.
That's a great read on it too. And yeah, I did forget that because she's kind of laying bare. She just says I'm not feeling respected or loved, and he says it could almost because he says, were you gonna cry? But he doesn't say it in that oh, are you gonna cry now? I feel
surprised.
He is surprised and concerned. And yeah, I mean, it's a really, it kind of just leaves you there with that, but it's still a really well done scene, the way it kind of has all that going on. And then there's no real resolution because they haven't resolved it yet, as a couple.
Yeah, and I guess it's about because her storyline this episode is mostly about Furio and everything with him. So I guess this is just part of that. But yeah, I mean, obviously for Tony as well, he gets him walking in and getting some food and starting to eat the food. I've seen him eat enough to sustain him, if that makes sense. If every scene of him eating was shown on the show, he would still survive and thrive because there are so many scenes of Tony eating. But yeah, so he tops up there.
Then we have the cell phone sit down. And I mean, it is nice that they do kind of explain this away because these are mafiosos. I assume real capos would be oh, are you serious? We would never be on a cell phone. But they're using burners. Maybe they got them from Jimmy McGill. Yeah. Would this be time? No, not the right time frame yet. A couple of years too early. But they got some burners, and it's so fun to see Uncle Junior. I love Uncle Junior, and he's just eating prunes or something. And
you put on his suit, of course, for the sit down, even though he's on the phone.
Yeah, you could totally tell too that I feel he's very excited to be a part of this because again, we saw in the last episode, I do get the feeling it's getting lonelier and lonelier, and that's been a common thing with Junior. And now he gets to kind of partake a little bit, and they get to kind of play up the comedy because even he doesn't understand someone walked out of the room because he's on speakerphone.
It is interesting, though. I mean, everyone knows, don't they, that Tony's running the show? Like, why are they including Junior at this point? Is it because it's such a weird argument about nothing that they need another voice of reason in there, or what's going on?
I was thinking the same thing. I mean, I guess because I think for all intents and purposes, even though everyone understands that Tony's running the show,
yeah,
he still has the title. Like he's still like, even though they know he's not the boss, it's still he's the boss. And it's not even that they have to play it up for the FBI, but they have to play it up just for their thing, you know?
Yeah.
Because at the very least, that's all they have, even though they're kind of going against it by, knowing behind his back that he's not it. And I mean, he knows he's not it too, but he's just happy to be there. And yeah, I guess it's because it's reaching such a fever pitch that any voice or fresh eyes maybe could help get a resolution of this thing.
Yeah, I guess it's because it's all about honor and respect. Just the fact that they're bringing in the head of the Soprano family means that they've brought it to a new level, kind of like when you're in a store asking to see the manager or whatever. He's not happy talking to Tony. Tony hasn't fixed this. Let's get the manager in here, even though he's just the same. He's not any different. Yeah, so he's in there and he gets to have some fun and he can eat some snacks as well while he's doing it.
And I like Tony's take here because he's just trying to find out who's talking shit. And that's his main thing. And it is making Johnny look bad because all he says is like, look, you just bring me in. If you tell me who it is, we'll bring him in here. And he says the same thing. I'll give you Ralph on a platter. And it comes off as more reasonable. But I mean, I guess Johnny's a little too smart for that. He's not going to give up his sources. Because I mean, I think one of his comments is like, if it was years ago, they wouldn't even have had this sit down because, again, the honor thing, and it's very reminiscent of Tony on the pilot, talking about how the younger generation don't respect the rules the same. And I kind of imagine Johnny Sack is a little bit older than Tony, so everyone has that same point of view about the younger ones not respecting tradition or honor the same way that they do.
Yeah. And next scene, Carmine has to give Tony a call and tell him he's not telling him nothing. He's not really saying nothing, except he's saying, "Go kill my underboss." But I'm not. You didn't hear it from me.
Yeah, he's basically giving him the go ahead, disconnecting himself from it. It's a nice scene too because you almost get at least from our point of view with the show, since we see Johnny Sack so much, and even when we do see Carmine, they do kind of play up the laughs sometimes. You get the sense that Johnny Sack is the Tony Soprano and Carmine's the Uncle Junior, more in like title than running things. But this episode kind of shows a little bit different from that. Like Carmine can make some calls and Johnny Sack isn't more important than all this money. And in a way, deflates a bit of, the season 3 finale because it felt like it was building up such this war with New York. But now it's like, no, well, Johnny Sack, there's money on stake. We can just get rid of him. No harm, no foul.
Yeah. And next scene, Tony's sort of decompressing this with his crew, talking about how to get it done. Or I don't know if they actually get into this at this point. He essentially just tells Ralph to get the fuck back to Miami and like, maybe we'll be able to keep you alive, you stupid piece of shit, with your dumbass remarks. And he just trudges out of there. Oh, yeah, it's when he's talking to Junior, again, sort of talking about the old days. And, oh, no, he's right. We never would have stood for that. But he does give some advice on how to best get Johnny whacked, leading to another interesting scene there when we go to meet these infamous murderers who are half of them are blind in this house.
Yeah, it feels like because it's like they just wanted to do this kind of Coen Brothers-esque scene here where, they build up these like DiMaggios and there's even like this Junior has to tell us the story behind them and how they had no drugs, but then the leader was dealing drugs and they caught him and he was giving up people to the feds, which is kind of reminiscent of Whitey Bulger, who they based The Departed off of, I believe, who recently I think died in jail. But he was one of those that was like turning on his own guys, kind of playing both sides type deal. I believe he's from Massachusetts too. Hell yeah, Massachusetts represent. But it's bizarre because, I mean, and I'm not even like, I know I've seen all these episodes and I just don't remember. Because it feels like when we get into the DiMaggios and the way the scene plays out, and then they even give him a picture and Tony's in the picture.
Yeah.
And you don't trust that these, even though Junior's like, no, the DiMaggios know what's going on, but they kind of seem really dumb. And yeah, some of them are blind. So it's like, wait, are they going to kill Tony? Like, what?
Yes. Feels like the start of a definitely the start of a Coen Brothers movie, or even like something like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Snatch, where like people are going to start murdering each other, but then like, I didn't tell you to murder them, but now we got to murder everyone, and then we're getting murdered. And like, even that guy who's there like, it's my birthday today too, when he sees like there's a birthday cake in the picture or whatever, and he's like, my name's Chris too. It's like, this is so weird that I can only expect this to get way out of hand, but then it all gets called off, and as far as I know, they're never in the show again. And I really wanted to know if they were really efficient killers or not.
Because I can't remember if this is something that comes back or if this is the Russian in the woods. But I mean, I guess we'll see. I'll find out with you guys. I don't remember, and I'm interested to see where it goes out, because it feels like, but then again, Sopranos is not above doing this, but it feels like since they spend so much time here, that it feels like there should be more to it. But Sopranos is completely fine with never coming back to the DiMaggios again. It's still a fun scene either way.
Yes, but I really want the payoff of like either them being really good at murdering someone or not. Even if it's just like at the end of season montage, Tony's like, all right, call in the hit on whoever, and then we just see one of these guys murdering someone and beating them up with a baseball bat. It's like, oh, okay, they did know what they were doing, because it's such a weird setup of them coming in there with the picture and like, do you do drugs? And Christopher's like, no, do you do drugs? It's like, I want something out of it, but yeah, it's a very interesting and fun scene either way.
Yeah, some of them are blind. One of them has an oxygen tank, and then the other guy's just kind of not all there. He mentions his birthday and Christopher, and like it is interesting to see like Chris and Sil like kind of freaked out by these people because they're like stone cold killers as well. Because Chris is even talking about how like we could just do this. Like, why do we need to get other people? So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's just kind of weird. It's just like a weird choice to go with, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, and then of course, Carmilla is looking up her different zoning rules and whatever, and actually shows up at Furio's place. We get to see the actual outhouse there. I mean, garage, and that he wants to turn into a house outside, kind of an outhouse. And AJ's there, just like, I need to use the bathroom, and she's like, no, we're gonna leave in a moment. And I was like, wait, why did she bring you there? Is it just so you don't accidentally sleep with Furio? Like, why did you bring AJ?
Yeah, totally. I'm just getting the feeling that it's like this weird cover of like, oh, it's not like I'm just going to see this guy that I think is like sexy and that I want to have an affair with, because I'm with my son. I'm just here giving him tips on how to maybe get out of these zoning rules or whatever. It's just this weird, he's only there as like a decoration to kind of keep things on the up and up.
Yeah.
And yeah, just a shitty detached garage that he wants to make into a little apartment. And a quick scene before that is we do find out that Johnny is working his own hit, kind of unapproved. And he feels like he's higher up in the ladder where even if he does it, he'll be able to handle it when all's said and done.
Right. And that's how we get like dueling hits being played out, where Johnny's going to have a hit on him. And then, of course, Ralph is as well, which is another fun setup thing where you feel like, oh, everyone's going to get shot and murdered here. Like, kind of like that promo you mentioned of like, oh, shit's really going to go down. And then neither of them gets murdered because he comes home and finds her eating Twix and shit on her knees in the basement because of society shaming her into this place. And that's what she's doing. So he doesn't go north. And he actually does have the wherewithal to actually call off the hit, which is, impressive. I feel like it could have played out like he calls like, and don't do it. And then Ralph is just dead. And even though we spent all of last season with Ralph, he could have died over this, over like nothing. They could have done that in this show, but they didn't.
Now, the fact that he calls it off, is it just because it's not as big of a deal? Because it was a big deal because he sees Ginny working hard and trying to lose the weight, but it's just not working. But now it's like she's not really working hard because she's hiding behind his back. Like, what do you think is the thing that does push him over the edge to be like, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to kill him over this?
Yeah, it's interesting. It does seem right that he does that. But I guess it's because, I mean, he's been standing in front of Ginny, like fending off any attackers because he thinks she's beautiful either way, which is proved as well in the scene when he's like, why? I've never made you feel like that. But he's really mad at people who would make her feel like that. But he's been there fending off any attacks towards her, thinking that she's working her hardest and doing her best. And I think he still kind of thinks that, but he just has to turn his attention more towards her because he's missing what's going on in his own house because he's so focused on like, oh, I got to kill Ralphie because he said something about my wife, when it's actually like, no, I actually need to talk to my wife maybe.
That's a great point. Yeah, because I like how they play it out, because it's not like he's mad and like, being like hurtful or anything. Like, he's disappointed because she's, hiding it behind his back. But it's not, he's like, he even says, like, I'm not trying to push you to go on these diets and try to lose this weight. But yeah, I think that's a better, because I just wasn't sure if he like lost a little respect for her, but still loved her. But I think I like your read better, is that, oh yeah, why am I worrying about this bullshit when I could just, talk to my wife, communicate, be at home, instead of, getting all riled up over a joke Ralph made and, really pushing things to an extreme by having someone killed over it.
Yeah, and they do keep that tension for a bit because Ralph's still there at the pool. He goes to the elevator and the assassin is right there. And he's like, but like, I'm already here, because he's so murder horny apparently that he just still wants to do it. And he wants the money either way. So he's like, oh, I get half or whatever. And still it's like, he's going to pull out a gun right now. So it's a good scene there, but he does let Ralphie walk off.
Yeah, because even Ralph's like, what the fuck's your problem? Like, guys just staring at him. Then we get to go to Furio's housewarming party. And
warming house party or whatever.
Yeah. And I feel like one of his rooms looks like the therapist's office, because he has like the same wall and blinds. But either way, they're bumping some Italian music. No one wants to dance. But then Carmella's like, oh, me? I guess I could dance. Does see a picture of Furio with the Italian boss lady, and I don't think she quite approves of that, because Furio's her man.
Oh yeah, of course. So there's a dance scene as well with Furio just wants to dance with everyone and have a fun time. Carmella's having a very fun time. Tony doesn't care. He's talking business with Silvio. He's fine. Everyone's having a good time basically. And
they even go out of their way to make sure that Tony's like, yeah, Carmella, you should go dance. And then they keep cutting to him not paying attention and not seeing what's happening. And I almost thought, and I think a lesser show would have maybe done this, I almost thought they were going to show like that Meadow was picking up on what was going on, because they almost kind of cut to her glancing for a moment, but I'm glad they didn't. But yeah, Tony's very aloof. He doesn't understand what's happening here.
So as someone who hasn't actually seen The Sopranos and that, I feel like they're spending a lot of stuff with Furio, but at the start of the season, it was like a joke that she's like found a new boo, because it was like, was it last season with the tennis instructor or whatever? Like, there's so many men who've come in and out that I feel like they probably won't play it up like an actual thing. It's more like what's going on in Carmella's mind. That's what's more important. That's always what's more important in our storyline than what's actually happening. And yeah, it is interesting. I honestly don't know where it's going to go, because I feel like Furio would not sleep with Carmella. So there you go.
Yeah. And they do the classic Sopranos fashion. They do a strange transition, because it just fades out on them dancing and kind of hangs on a black screen for a second, and then we cut back in and it's Melfi and Elliot in therapy.
Yeah, I was like, is that the end of the episode? Fade to black? Is it fade to black now? but yeah, there's the therapy scene rounding off that conversation there from earlier, which you already mentioned. And after that, oh yeah, Tony comes home with flowers for no particular reason and a nice dress that she can't fit into. Is the
Well,
joke just that she can fit into it and he's happy about having a wife that doesn't have
I
a
was
90-pound mole removed
I
from
was
her
gonna
ass?
ask the same thing, but before that, I mean, before the lead up to that is Johnny does come in and tell Tony that he accepts Ralph's apology and have him call him, and then but he does make the comment of like no more weight remarks. They're hurtful.
Yep.
But yeah, and then the next scene he comes in, yeah, with some gifts in Saks Fifth Avenue. I mean, part of it, of course, is the previous scene of she was saying how she felt unloved and not respected and everything. So he is trying to make up for that. But I think
With
there also
presents.
there is this element that he is like happy that she can fit into a small dress. Like it's definitely
Yeah.
there because I mean she specifically comments like, "Oh, I don't think I'm going to fit in this," and then just her fitting in it like gets him all like hot and bothered, kind of. And it's
I
weird.
know they.
Oh, good.
I was gonna say about the music that I was
Yeah.
sure it was. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, the same thing. They always do this where they have a piece of music early on and then they fade it up at the end to sort of reconnect, and we see like a close up of her face. I think I'm sure, and it's like the music from the party with Furio. She's connecting that up, but then it's like, nah, I can't with the music, and it's Meadow who apparently like got a copy of that cassette tape, and she's blasting it in her room. So they just go and turn it off and then get it on again, and it's all good.
Well, it's great, yeah, because you totally think that it's just playing up like we're getting her point of view, and then they have a reveal that no, someone's actually playing Meadows actually playing that music, but I do think she is enjoying it, and like I think it's the fact that it's too much of a reminder of Furio, but then you can almost flip it as well, like going back to weight because Tony's like this hulking fatso,
Yeah.
and he's on top of her too. Like I think that's all very deliberate, and it's this weird like, oh wait, no, but that's not what Furio would be. Like Furio's like lean, mean, and full of cum or whatever. So it's like she
Right,
has
exactly.
to have.
Took the words out of my mouth, Jim.
I feel like she has
Best
to
of
have it
both worlds.
turned off because it's too much of a reminder of Furio, and she can't like enjoy it with Tony because of that or something.
And I wonder what this means, like, if you look at it metaphorically, because she's starting to hear the Furio music when she's starting to get all hot and bothered. But then she's like, no, I don't want this. I need, like, let's turn that off. And for me, that's like, I'd be fine if that was just the end of the Furio love storyline, that she actually does, like, turn off the music. No, let's get that out of there. And that's, like, her end point for it. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, because it kind of comes back up though, doesn't it? I mean, I think it's a different Italian music, but it kind of like after the music's off and then they're like getting it on again, like as the credits are about to roll. I mean, because it does kind of go in on her face, and she's like, she's kind of, you could see that she's distant, like she's not fully in the moment, and then it feels like the music starts to come back up.
That is true. You are right on that. And they do it in sort of slow motion as well, adding another aspect of like we're inside her mind, but for real this time, guys, we promise.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. That's probably part of it, her trying to shut that out, but it's coming back. So yeah, overall though, I really like this episode because it has such weird escalations over nothing, which then gets handled in a fun way with fun extra scenes talking to blind murderers, etc. It's a solid piece of work.
Yeah, I agree. And they like even going through this ending scene, they're doing a lot of interesting stuff with the music and with the performance and the visuals. So, vintage Sopranos kind of banging on all cylinders. So I'm just excited to get through season 4. I'm excited to be back. I know, again, if you're listening to the podcast, you don't know that we've kind of been away for a few weeks, but I'm excited to be back watching this show again, discussing this show again. And like we said, we're in it for the long haul.
Yes, and I don't want to promise that there won't be other breaks because we did have a really good run of like no breaks, getting through it. Everyone's watching along with us. We are sorry to disappoint when there's not an episode 1 week, but we're definitely dedicated to getting this done. It's just that our schedules are fucked. We live in different countries and different time zones, and it just hasn't been working out. But we're definitely going to get there. Just stick with us and we'll get there.
Absolutely. And you can find more of me at jimandthem.com. Excuse me. You can find more of Jacob at awesomepedia.org. And of course, make sure you are subscribed on the podcast feed and please rate and review.
Yes, the reviews really do help us out, and they're fun to read as well. Put one in there. Maybe you'll get it read out on the show. And until next time, there's just one further details I wanted to get into.
Oh, what's that?
Cut to black.